For our next session, we have Cinteza, who just recently released a game with their studio Gummy, and he's here to tell us what that experience was like. Please welcome Raresh.
Hello. It's nice to be here. My name is Raresh. Oh, you can see me over there. That's amazing. My name is Raresh. I, along with a small team, recently released this game called Bear and Breakfast. And I'm going to tell you how it went and why I'm actually here talking in front of you all. Bear and Breakfast, if you haven't heard of it, is a laid back management game where you build and run a bed and breakfast, but you're a bear. It's very self explanatory. The talk that I'm going to present to you, as it was named, is a post mortem. And it's generally aimed at indies. I mean, obviously, if you're not indie, there's things that you can learn from here, but it's mainly like I think indies will get the most out of it. It's also kind of aimed for beginner slash intermediate. Um, it's a good tale of how things went for us, but maybe if you're, I don't know, a little bit more experienced, maybe there's not a lot of stuff you haven't heard before. And also obviously for bear fans, because who doesn't like bears? If you're a senior, like I said, I'm sure there's things I'm going to talk about that you've heard about before, but if you're interested in how things went for us, I think you're going to have a good time. So our company is called Gummy Cat. It is the butthole of a cat. It is amazing. I love it. We are right now a team of 3 people, but for the most of the development of Bear and Breakfast, we were 5. So this is what I consider to be the core team, 5 people, and it was an artist, a designer slash writer, 2 programmers, and a project manager. But if you look at the credits of the game, like I think overall over the life of the game, maybe like 50 people contributed to the game. So it's a lot much bigger than just 5 people. Anyway, here today, I'm going to tell you the tale of how Bear and Breakfast came to be and what that meant to us as developer for like first time making a game from Romania that doesn't have like a super big indie scene, and it was a little bit scary. And to tell you about how on the 20th of July 2022, a couple of days ago, basically, right, we finally got to the point of launching the game after years of development and trailer making and marketing and whatnot. We got to something that a lot of people here have either experienced or want to experience, which is pressing this little green button in the Steam backend, which is to release your game. Um, I'm sure a lot of people maybe have pressed this button multiple times. This was our first time as a team, and I'm happy to announce that it's actually a very calm and relaxing process and not at all scary and fear inducing. And you can see that by our faces, which are all extremely happy and very upbeat. Um, so happy. So basically, on the 20th of July 2022, we launched our first game, Bear and Breakfast. And to give you an idea of what that looked like, I'm going to show you the trailer for our announcement date. Let's see if we have sound. No sound. But that's fine. You can enjoy the amazing animation by Remus and Kiki, who are an animator duo that actually, I think Remus is actually from Romania as well. But they're in the UK and they made this absolutely amazing animation. We are so super, super lucky to have worked with them. And it shows the adventures or misadventures of Hank the Bear, who's our main character that I'm going to tell you all about in a little bit. But you're basically, your introduction to this world of Hank the Bear is that he's a little clumsy. And this is what gameplay actually looks like. You're a bear, you gather stuff, you craft furniture that you use to build things, and then bring on people to live in your little bed and breakfast in the woods. There's exploration, there's a ton of areas, there's other characters, dialogues, narrative. It's a whole spiel. Um, But in order for me to tell you how we got there, I have to go back another few days in the past to summer of 2019, where the game did not look anything like that. It actually looked a lot closer to this. And if you ask me, I would have preferred this version, but we have to do things like listen to game players and what they want and whatever, and this wouldn't really have cut it. But in my opinion, this is the better looking bear. The best way I thought about how to get to from that point to here, like basically how Bear and Breakfast went from a little cub bear to big, ready for launch bear in just about 3 years, is to show you how we pitched the game initially to publishers and investors and whatever, and what eventually came out and how well we did, basically, because we had a pitch 3 years ago in the summer of 2019. And some things changed, some things didn't, some things got better, and some things got worse. And the best way for me to remember everything is just basically go through the pitch deck. And I'm just going to talk about the concept of the game, the identity, the visuals, the character in general, the game design, marketing, production, and budget, which is all the things that we basically thought we should include in that original pitch deck, which, by the way, is available online. Our pitch deck is available online at this link. This is something called the Founders Kit by Hey Glitch, which is a very, very cool organization. And this has a lot of other pitch decks and a lot of other resources if you're like thinking about being an indie dev or just starting out or whatever. It's a great resource. You should go there. So let's go to the pitch deck. Every time I'm going to show you a slide from our pitch deck, it's going to have the little red pitch deck sticker on in the bottom there. This was the cover. This is basically the first thing any publisher and investor would see either through email or whatever. Which, by the way, in order to get this game eventually published, in the summer of 2019, I sent about 70, almost 80 emails, out of which 55 never responded at all. And the 25-ish that did respond, we had either an email exchange or maybe I was very, very fortunate through previous job experiences to have a little bit of a network, by the way, to get all these contacts. And some of them actually agreed to meet me at like Gamescom or PAX because I was able to go there, which I know that not everyone gets to. So we were lucky in that front. But eventually, out of the 25 that responded, 24 said no, but that's okay because you only need one. And the one that we signed, we never ever met in person. We only talked through email and eventually Zoom. And yeah, that's how many emails I had to send to get this game published. So let's go through the concept of the game. What did we pitch? We pitched Bear and Breakfast, a management adventure game where you take care of a cabin in the woods, but you're a bear. Sounds good. Sounds like exactly what I explained it and what the trailer showed it to be. This is also part of the pitch deck, but I forgot a little red thing. We thought it was a good idea to show references, to show any publisher what we kind of wanted people to think about when they thought about Bear and Breakfast. Stardew Valley, which is, I don't know, when you're making this kind of game, is kind of a no-brainer. If you have any sort of idea that you're gonna kind of maybe look like or feel like Stardew Valley, why not? Night in the Woods, because it's the best written game I've ever played, and that's what I aspire to. And Themed Hospital, which I really loved as a kid growing up. It's a great management game about running a hospital. And we also had a couple of thematic references. Gravity Falls, which is one of my all-time favorite shows, and Fantastic Mr. Fox, and a lot of movies by Wes Anderson. But we thought it was a good idea to have thematic references in the pitch deck so that anyone who read it could kind of understand what we're going for. So in terms of concept, we had a management game that was kind of intertwined with narrative. So it had a story, and we had a bear. So we had all of the ingredients that we needed to make it successful. And it's good because, like, who doesn't like bears? And bears have been on the up ever since Enviro Bear 2000, which is one of the greatest games ever made. So how did we do in terms of the concept? of the game. How well did we maintain from the pitch deck to the launch of the game the whole idea of what we wanted to do? Management game with narrative progression. I'd say we did pretty good, right? Seems good. Um, what about the overall identity of the game? When we pitched the game, the logo looked like this. Did we keep this logo exactly like it is? We did not, but that's okay because over like the 3 years we made the game, that logo kind of went all over the place. We had tens of thousands almost variants and things we tried just to make it, I don't know, close to what we wanted it to be. And eventually the logo ended up looking like this, which I would say it's still good. It's not what we pitched, but it's in the vein of what we wanted to. It's better, I think, subjectively. And a lot of people didn't mind it, but in general, it was, oh, yeah, it wasn't exactly what we pitched, but it was maybe better. So in the end, it worked out. And when it comes to visual identity in general, how did we do on visuals? This is what the prototype eventually looked like when we pitched it in the summer of 2019. The first video was something very, very early, and this is what we got to about 2.5 months later after starting to make the prototype. These are screenshots that we showed in the pitch deck. And compared to what the game looks like now or looked like at launch, I'd say it's pretty close. I feel like our visuals were like some of the strongest things we had from the very start, and it'll be stupid of us to change maybe some of the things that probably we got the best feedback on, even from those that said no. So this is what the prototype looked like when we were pitching it, when we were showing it to people. Funny enough, we didn't actually we had a playable, but we couldn't email that playable because it didn't play so well. But we had video editing skills, and video editing skills can save your life and get you money for funding a project. And compared to what the game looks now, it's maybe a little more complex. It's maybe a little bit more polished, but it didn't really change the signature of the game. It still looks close enough to what we pitched, and generally it's an upgrade. It's not a downgrade or a side grade. So pretty good, I would say. Pretty good. One more thing that I wanted to talk about that I mentioned earlier is Hank, the character of the game, which is the main. We have many characters, but the main character is Hank, and this is what we pitched the game with. This is what Hank looked like at the time. This was made by someone who wasn't on our team, but is an amazing person. Her name is Lydia, and she's somewhere in the room here. In general, I wanted to talk about the character because it was by far our strongest asset at every single point in development. This bear really carried us all the way through. And it started off as we had no idea what it was supposed to look like. These were very early sketches. These are also early sketches. We knew we wanted to have multiple clothes for the bear. Can it work? Can we do hand-drawn animation and have multiple styles of clothes over multiple animations? Sure, why not? We'll figure it out. How hard can it be? It's very hard. And we spent a lot of time. I think we spent the most time reiterating on the main character, not because any of these were necessarily too bad, but they were not exactly where we wanted to, and it's very hard to define what we meant by what we wanted to. It was very we just had to nab it out of the ether, and you'd know it when you saw it. But we tried a lot, maybe a third of development time. So out of 30-ish months, maybe 10 or 12 months were spent developing the character. And we tried a lot of walk cycles. There were a lot of walk cycles to get the bear looking like we wanted to. Again, it was all hand-drawn frame-by-frame animation, which was important. This was us trying other things. This is still the best one, objectively. You cannot prove me wrong. But we had so many walk cycles throughout the life of the bear, just trying to get him to a point where we were so happy with him. This was the closest one we had. Um, so over again 10 or 12 months of making this game, we eventually got to the character that we really wanted to psych more walk cycles. We had again so many reiterations on making the bear look what we wanted to, and in the end I'm very happy that we spent all this time because what came out of it was by far the strongest thing we made for the game, and it was the driver for the game in a lot of senses, especially when it came to marketing. People just loved the bear, both fans of the game, people just finding out about the game, and also people that had some power that could help us propagate the game. So, in terms of character, what we pitched versus what was eventually shipped, I would say we did a good job. Maybe probably the best job out of everything else. Um, how about design? Game design was the weakest thing we had because we didn't have an actual game designer. We had me, who had worked in games but had never designed the game, and I was an idea guy, which is an amazing thing to be when you can do something else. If you're just the idea guy, then mm, it might be hard. But I tried to do design, and I tried to think about what we wanted to eventually have this game be, just because I had played games before and I liked the way they played, and I wanted to try to integrate it somehow in my game. So our game loop, when we pitched it, was you build your cabin, you manage it, bring guests and whatnot, you explore the world, and then you repeat, and that's the basic loop of the game. We also wanted to have a sense of progression. You start out in a little dinky shed, and then you get bigger and bigger cabins until eventually you have like a huge cabin um, that you can't really manage properly unless you're like super experienced in the game. So in the end, we had a game that had a lot of building and crafting, where you would eventually manage guests with this beautiful interface. You would then explore the areas, which I think we spent one of the, I don't know, next to the character was maybe the second most developed thing, all the areas that we spent building and all the world that we wanted to bring up, even though we didn't hit the mark of what we pitched initially, but more on that later. Um, and after you're done exploring, uh, you can just repeat the whole loop. But we definitely didn't also add trinkets for your character that modify the game further, or a very complex cooking system with cards and whatnot that took a lot of more time to develop than we actually thought. Um, it was great. We only stuck to the exact loop that we showed here, and nothing happened, and it was all good and all fine. This is not foreshadowing. And now on to maybe like one of the most ubiquitous, and we're still scratching our heads about it, but we didn't really pitch anything about marketing. We had this slide on in the pitch deck about who's listening and about um, our audience and players that want to do, I don't know, to play fun games. I guess was the only slide in our marketing deck, but we knew going in that we had to have uh, our own kind of marketing, just because even while we were pitching the whole thing, we knew that we just needed someone to give us money, and we'll take care of the rest. We'll take care of what marketing meant. We'll take care of putting the game out there. And it eventually didn't work out exactly that way, but this was probably one of the most successful things uh, we did, was market the game really well. In the end, from September 2020 when we announced the game officially to July of 2022 when we launched, we had a Twitter account with around 35,000 followers, which isn't a lot, but it's not nothing. And our Discord server had about 10K, which grew kind of steadily over time. And having 10K on Discord is probably a lot more powerful than having 35 on Twitter or whatever, just because 10K on Discord is like an active, involved community. Um, And our Twitter was probably the most successful marketing asset we had. We didn't spend a dime on paid advertising. We didn't spend any money on paid ads. We just kind of posted on Twitter, and sometimes we just posted um, things about the game. Hey, look, we made some pumpkin patches. It's around Halloween. It's October 2020. Let's just post something. And then we kind of went with the flow and saw where people were going. Um, and we had that little bear crow, and people were asking about it. So our follow up tweet was just a bear crow. And this kind of we never had a Twitter account before announcing this game, and we kind of had to learn the platform and what people were going for and what they were posting, and we just kind of leaned into it naturally. For instance, we had some when we got 4,000 followers, we were like, okay, it's 4K, we can have like maybe a joke here. So we had this little bit about the game, about Hank the bear, which everyone liked, and then like this was Hank in 4K. Um, and people were super psyched about it. Or we took every opportunity we could to make a little joke, even if it meant not taking ourselves too seriously. In 2020, for some reason, Unity had Unity Awards like they do, but for some reason they decided to give us a prize for most anticipated game. I think we came in third, and first place was. Um, Hollow Knight Silk Song, and second place was League of Legends Wild Rift. So just making a post about that, just it came in naturally. And this is kind of if someone asks about marketing strategy or Twitter strategy, there was no strategy. It was just me looking up memes and finding things to kind of always match with the game. We also sometimes didn't just do content about the game, but we always tried to somehow include the bear because we figure out we have a monopoly on bears when it came to game dev a little bit, and sometimes it would lead like to viral tweets like this, which we had no idea and didn't expect, and probably gave us a few followers and a few wish lists, but it wasn't a huge impact. It was just on Twitter, it was a big deal, but it didn't really seep into anything else. But it was nice. It was really nice getting a viral tweet like this. And sometimes you just keep it simple. You just keep very simple things. You use your asset, which is Hank, and you just have a stupid meme layout, and you get 3,000 hits on a tweet. And that was our Twitter strategy, and it still is, and it's still going great. Um, Beyond the Twitter strategy, we had one very important ally, which was Nintendo. Nintendo really, really liked the game before it was announced. And because it was unannounced and we hadn't really decided on what platforms we were launching beyond PC, they reached out and they wanted us to be in their Indie Direct in August of 2020. And we used that to kind of announce the game officially, which was a great success. It was honestly the best platform we could ask for. It meant more than, I don't know, all the money in the world we had. This, I'm not sure what the original streaming numbers look like, but this was the video of the showcase in 2020 garnered 800,000 views or something. And this trend with Nintendo continued because they liked the game so much. They put a lot of our trailers on their YouTube channel, and most of them did really well. For instance, our original announcement trailer with them almost did 1 million views on their channel. And so did the release date trailer. It did really well. So Nintendo was something that our publisher found, obviously, because they already had the connection. And it was one of the biggest things they did for us in terms of giving us that connection. And then Nintendo liking the game so much was very, very fruitful in terms of marketing. I'm sure there's a lot of other factors that I haven't really talked about in marketing, and that could be a whole talk in itself. But when it came to marketing and what we pitched versus what we got, I think we did the best. I think it was, I don't know, a great success. And now comes the part where this entire talk isn't as fun anymore because I'm going to talk about production. Yay! Production on this game was pitched like this. This was summer of 2019, and we were looking to get funding, maybe either in autumn of 2019 or something like that. And we pitched that we were here, we were in pre-production, we were doing all of these systems, and we had this nicely designed, visually nicely designed, if I do say so myself, timeline with all of the things that we were planning to do and the dates and whatever. This never happened, by the way. This was just me pulling out of my butt, and then it eventually didn't really lead to anything. And the main reason why we couldn't hold to this production schedule was because it was entirely unrealistic from the start, and basically because I had no idea what I was doing. And that led to something that I am really not proud of, which is, well, before that, uh, we had a little bit of a mishap when we started. The programmer that we eventually made the prototype with couldn't work with us because we hadn't really gotten the contract signed yet with the publisher. We didn't know if we'd had funds. He annoyingly wanted to have money to eat and pay rent, and had to find another job. So after we signed the contract, we started looking for another programmer to work with, and we did find someone local, which we met with in person, had a very nice lunch with, um, signed the contract, and got going on developing the game. And 1 week later, they stopped responding to any of our emails or texts or anything or phone calls. And we in the setup, we gave this person a email address on our like Google account, whatever, the G Suite business blah 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 thing. They also asked to have a server to automate testing or something. They had a plan. I'm not a programmer. I'm just gonna trust the person that they're gonna do what they want to do. So I eventually set everything up for them. And after a week, I thought I'll just check their email and see what happened. And it turns out that they use their Gmail account, our basic business account, to set up crypto mining servers through Google. And then their actual email address signed up to crypto betting sites and like incur some debt there. We had around $800 worth of Google services used for this thing right as we were starting. And we kind of had like all of the goodwill of the publisher behind us, and we had to tell them, hey, it's going to take a little longer to find that programmer. Um, Thankfully, our Lord and Savior Google was okay to waive the fee after we told them we had got scammed. And eventually, lucky enough that the second person on our list, right after the scammer person, was an amazing programmer, an amazing person that accepted even after we told him no initially, who is also here in the room. So we were back on track. We started building our team to make this game, and it was very, uh, let's get an office and let's all build IKEA furniture together, and let's, feel good as a team and start making a game and have like this little bit of a dream and feel good about it. And there was a lot of IKEA furniture. It was a nice office and a lot of IKEA furniture, and it all felt really, really good. It was a huge carpet. And at one point, this being in early 2020, I have this excerpt of the video. It doesn't make sense without sound, but it was us later in the year announcing the delay of the game through a video. And in this video, we were talking about how we initially had a launch date, but then after all our planning, something very funny happened, which was obviously COVID. And from that beautiful office with all the IKEA furniture, we came here back home in our apartment where we only had a table and a couple of laptops to start working on. This was a big setback, but I cannot just blame it all on this setback, all on COVID or whatever. There were other setbacks, and we were also still very, very fortunate to have a contract from a publisher basically ensuring we have a job for the next, I don't know, year and a half or something while this was going on and we were working from home. I'm This wasn't the best way to start making a game, but it wasn't the worst either. Um, we also pitched that this was the state of the game when we pitched the game, because we had pitched 12 to 14 months of development time by the for launching the game, which is in hindsight and maybe at the time obvious BS, but in reality this was what we had, which was basically nothing. And that came from a lot of lack of experience. It wasn't lack of theoretical experience on how things were made. We just never kind of tried to make a game together as a team. We each had individual experiences. Um, but, like, for instance, if you want to make that cute bear that walks in the way that it walks and that's fluffy and everything, you have to understand bear anatomy. Who knew? From an art perspective, in order to eventually be able to synthesize it and make it a cute cartoon bear. Um, you have to do that with every kind of animal you put in game, and eventually you want it to also look good. And for instance, you to make it look good, you have to uh, explore it and study it even more until you are able to figure out how they work. This was a game that also had a lot of furniture in it, so our artists had to learn about furniture. We were already a step up because our artists had finished interior design school, which was great, but it's still a lot of furniture to have to learn about. To have you ever heard of the Adirondack style in the US and their furniture? I never did. I probably misspelled it. It doesn't matter. It's something that we didn't know or didn't expect the amount of time it would take us to eventually be able to learn all of the things and make all of the items. And this is not even like 10% of them. Um, what about environments? What about what the dialogue screen look like? What about concepting? Should it look different? Should we go beyond what we initially wanted to? How do tile sets work? Wait, are these assets too big? Is this going to bite us in the butt later when we try to launch on a glorified mobile game platform? I love Nintendo Switch. So yeah, we had a lot of planning problems. We had a lot of planning problems that mainly stemmed from me because, as the quote unquote leader of the project, I had no idea what I was doing, and that kind of snowballed into other people having to pick up slack, um, including our publisher, who was one of the best things that happened was signing with Armor Games because they were first off amazing people before anything else, and they understood all of the things in game development, and they were very understanding about COVID and everything else. But it still kind of eroded our team, and it still led to um, things like this. This is a screenshot from our call on Discord. At one point, I think I called this JPEG file Hell Week because I think it was the lowest we felt, and I feel very guilty about that because it made a lot of what was supposed to be the first project of a first team, that's supposed to be something great. It made it, it turned it into a little bit of a hellscape for a lot of people on the team, including myself. Um, the problem is that when you're developing a game, the math never lies. So we would start off by giving up some estimates, some maybe I can finish this in X amount of time, never having done it before. And then when those didn't work out, we were like, okay, we've done a couple of things. Let's just do the math. And the math never lies. And it sucks when it doesn't add up. For instance, one area in the game initially took like 40 hours to make because we had at least maybe one area done, and we know we pitched 17, so that's 4 months of work for a single artist that's supposed to do everything else as well. That just, how does that work if we have like a 12 to 14 months development cycle? um, what about guests? Guests have to do things. Guests have to interact with the world so that they're believable, so that you kind of get attached to it, right? What does it take to make a single guest? How much does a banana cost? And then you also have to make various guests so that it doesn't feel like it's a video game, so that you eventually end up having a little army of guests. Um, But in order to do that, we have to devise a system where we reuse as much as possible, or we make templates that has to all of that has to fit with our hand drawn frame by frame animation system in the game. And for instance, um, this is just one side out of the eight possible for one guest for one template. And we had to have like five of these or even more. To it just it really didn't make sense. Yeah, we wanted to have 12 NPCs, and out of 40 hours per NPC, and we were only a handful of people. We were five people with one artist, and then a couple of animators that we contracted. It didn't add up. On top of that, I'm sure you all know by now that the 8 hour day is a lie. You're never working 8 hours a day, not continuously. Or if you are, you're not going to be able to sustain it. You're not going to be able to make that your life and still come out living on the other side of things. And we had to also learn that the hard way. One of the things that I personally learned was that delegating is a gift. It Because we were all wearing so many hats and doing so many things, eventually we reached a point where it was like, no, stop. You cannot do this, this, and this. You have to let someone else do it or hire someone to do it. And initially, I felt like such a failure for not actually doing the thing that I had set up myself to do. And it only because of the sheer uh, I don't know, feeling of relaxation after I had delegated something, that I eventually found that this wasn't really uh, a failure. It was actually a victory to be able to just get things moving just by delegating and giving it to someone else. And maybe this goes without saying, I shouldn't tell you all, but um, collaboration is king in a project this big, which, by the way, it was too big of a project for such a small team as their first game, but it eventually worked out, whatever. You really, really, really should listen to everyone's inputs, because you don't know where the good information is going to come from. And making time to make sure that everyone has a voice if they want to have a voice is so important. And just kind of isolating yourself and isolating each member of the team to do their own thing and never collaborating. I feel like that would have killed us. And if we didn't at one point just all as a team start planning the rest of the things we had to do, we would have never have made it. And we would have never have made it in the 12 to 14 months that we said we would, because it was a stupid, unrealistic goal that I felt like I had to push in order to get a successful pitch. But the actual dev time in the end was around double that. And again, we were very, 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 very lucky to have our publisher that was understanding every time we had to prolong our development time. So, so yeah. From a production standpoint, did we uh, deliver what we pitched on in 2019? We definitely did not. What about the budget? Did we deliver what we pitched on the budget? Which I'm sure you would have liked actual numbers to be there, but that has to get greenlit by the publisher, and it hasn't. So no, obviously we didn't maintain the budget. Actually, the one thing that I can tell you is from the budget that we initially pitched, which was uh, kind of a rough idea of a budget. We were expecting to maybe go a little bit over, but out of like all of these things that we said it would cost, we went almost 160% over budget, which makes sense with the extra time allotted. But it all worked out in the end, I guess. So publishers take risks, and it'll work, I'm sure. So the recap: this was the final page of the pitch deck. Um, what we were pitching was a management adventure game with a focus on narrative. We were in pre-production and unannounced, which was very, very attractive to publishers, because having an unannounced game gives all of these opportunities to kind of go and pitch to platform holders and whatnot. Our development time, like I said, was almost over a year, and our release date, spoiler alert, we didn't really hit our release date. But what did we end up doing? we ended up having around 40 hours of playable content, which is, I think, pretty good over the 2 hours that the Steam refund timer is. So I think we're okay in that front. It's basically like watching the first seasons of Friends back to back, including the two episodes with Ross's wedding. And we had around 50,000 words in the whole game, translated in 5 languages, which obviously we didn't do ourselves, but we did do the writing ourselves. And 50,000 words is a lot for a video game. Didn't know that either. And after we launched, we also had a little bit of buzz about it. We had articles written about the game, and they weren't all great. Some of them were kind of meh, but it's still like there's an article in the Guardian about my game, so I can show it to my mom. I could. It doesn't matter what it wrote about it. It's an article in the Guardian. So um, the the real kicker for us was after we launched. I think we're now actually over 2,000, but we got over 2,000 reviews on Steam, and we're still holding at over 90% positive. And this was the number that we actually cared about, and we hit it. And it's still one of the best things about the game, and it's rare. This happens very rarely, and we're very very fortunate to be in this position. Um, but it's not because we were, I don't know, this amazing game developer. It was a lot of luck and individual people that were really really nice and really really skilled, and that could make up for a lot of screw ups along the way, mainly my screw ups. um, and I had to ask myself, would I do it again? Because it's very hard to be certain about anything in life. Even questions like, would you do it again? Well, I don't know. Under similar circumstances, maybe not. But when it comes to the experience, to repeat the experience as it was, yeah, I think I'd do it again. I think I'd do it again with a lot more care for the people involved, because this image, I've put it up 3 times already, and I'll put it up again because it haunts me, because I never ever ever want to be the person responsible for this image again. But it's okay, because it wasn't all the time. It was, we were sometimes happy, we sometimes looked like we were enjoying ourselves. And then I'm happy to report that on the 28th of July, basically, we all got together in a room, and we launched the game, and it was a really really good experience in the end. Right now, we're still working on it. The game is out. We're taking a little bit of rest, but we still want to keep working on it, because you don't get that opportunity twice in life. So um, yeah, we get to do these things as well, coming to Dev.Play and having nice little talks. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, Raresh. We have time for a couple of questions. So, who would like to? Okay, we have one here and one. Okay, we have 3 so far. Let's try to cover these.
Hey man, congratulations. It's an awesome game, especially for such a small team and new team, as you said. And stop being so hard on yourself. You're obviously all very talented. And I hope you inspire a lot of people here to go into games. It's awesome. So, a quick question about production. I'm curious, since it's pretty atypical to have a producer for such a small team. I'm curious about that. Why do you have a producer in a small team? And also, what are your next plans, if you have any?
Thanks, Van. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily atypical, and if anything, I would encourage people who want to start making video games to take production, a project manager or a producer seriously, even in small teams. Miruna, who was our producer slash project manager, came in later, came in actually a year after we started the development, because there was so much chaos in everything we were doing, organizing everything, timelines and whatever, that we really needed someone to come in and step in and at least uh, even if they didn't have all the experience in the world, at least have someone that would kind of take the responsibility of telling each person what they had to do on a given day. Like just having Miruna come in and say, "Hello, today you are supposed to do this and this because you said so." And that would be like, okay, yeah, I definitely said so. I'll do them. And like I said, I think it's something that we should take seriously from the very start. I think you should have a producer from day one if possible, and you should include that in budgets if you're pitching, because I feel like it's an invaluable person to have on your team. Next steps, we're resting a little bit. We'll keep updating the game because there's a lot of things that we didn't get to add in the game that we really want to. And I don't know, next game. Bring on the next game.
Thanks. One question here.
I love the presentation. I can't believe an hour already passed. My question is, how did you manage to get your list of publishers that you sent emails to? And then why do you need a publisher? What were the advantages? So kind of related. I hope it's not too long.
Yeah. Thank you. Like I said, the list of publishers came after years of working for a local company called Those Awesome Guys, which I'm sure you've heard of. They made a game called Move or Die. I went from working in general production or marketing for them to doing business development, and that opened a lot of, uh, you know, opportunities to go to events and meet people and get a lot of business cards, or just generally have a little bit of a network when it comes to meeting new publishers. And you don't need to meet every person you email, but you get to kind of know where the publishing sphere is just by going to these events as an indie, even if you're not actively looking. Because if you go there and you'll see that there are everywhere people looking to give you money. It's at the same time, it's very hard and it's very easy to get money as an indie publisher. It's a weird dichotomy, but we were on the lucky side of it, I guess, just barely. And the second question was, oh yeah, we needed money. We didn't have money. We wanted to be able to afford food, and we didn't like the idea of doing it part time, just because we want to have the full focus on the game. Doing a full-time job and also working on your own indie game, I feel like is amazing, and I'm like in awe of anyone who could do it. But we wanted to focus just on the game itself and be able to live at the same time and be able to have like a normal life without a lot of stress. And it didn't end up that way just because we occupied our entire lives with the game. But mainly money. I'm sure that other people are looking for publishers to give them more support in terms of marketing, which is very hard to do as an indie. But I found that that's hit or miss. And usually we don't want to rely on publishers to give us anything other than the very concrete. And that was initially the funds.
Thanks. And we had one other question.
Congrats on the game. My question is, how long did you spend in development before approaching the publisher?
I would say under 2 months, something like that. From the minute we first met as a team till having the build and the pitch ready for the publisher, it was maybe 2 months, something like that. But the prototype that we had was very beautiful because we had an amazing artist, but it was almost like unplayable. It didn't really showcase any of the mechanics of the game in the final. We just had to rely on ourselves to be good sellers of the idea and show like it'll be like this, just like this. No, don't click that. And so it wasn't an amazing prototype from a technical standpoint. It just looked good.
I think we have time for one more.
Hi, very nice presentation. It seems to be from the heart. I have a kind of not very happy question because my friend, it's a very hard player of this game, and wants to know if there will be some kind of a patch in the near days because the app is crashing on Switch. So
Yeah. Maybe at one point I'll be able to tell the
because they are
story.
desperate,
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
more than 40 hours in the game. So.
Wow. Your friend is not the only one. Maybe I'll be able to tell the story of how the Switch port for this game happened, but it's not a fun story. And for reasons I cannot go into it now, but we are making a patch and we're going to fix it so that it doesn't crash anymore. But it'll take a little bit more.
All right. Thank you, Raresh. Please, so round of applause. Thank you very much.